All right, today we're going to dive into a judicial institution that's been through some of the most intense challenges in Pakistan's history. I'm talking about the Balochistan High Court. We're about to see how its judges were put to the test in ways that, frankly, few others ever have.
So how does a court uphold the law when the Constitution itself is suspended? I mean, think about that. This isn't just some law school hypothetical. It's a real-world, high-stakes dilemma that the judges in Balochistan had to face head-on. They were forced to make choices that would define their entire careers and really shape the very meaning of justice for the whole province.
Okay, so first things first, let's get our bearings. What exactly is the Balochistan High Court? Well, it's the highest judicial body in Pakistan's largest province, Balochistan. It's right there at the top of the legal food chain for the entire region, and its main seat is in the capital city, Quetta.
So yeah, its official name is the High Court of Balochistan. And its job? Well, it's pretty fundamental. It's the ultimate arbiter of law and justice for the region. Think of it this way. It's the highest court of appeal in the province. It's basically the last stop for legal battles before a case could, maybe, go all the way up to the Supreme Court of Pakistan. But, the court we see today didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Not at all. It's got a history. It grew from really humble beginnings way back in 1976. So let's kind of trace that journey, see how it all started.
So get this, when the court was first established back on December 1st, 1976, it started with just 5 judges. That's it. The very first Chief Justice was the Honorable Khuda Baksh Murray, and he was the one presiding over this tiny but absolutely crucial new institution.
And this timeline here really paints a picture of the court's growth. You can see it started out in 1976, operating out of an existing Sessions Court building. Pretty modest. Then, fast forward to 1993, and bam, it gets its own brand new, much larger complex after a whole 7 years of construction. And then, much more recently, in 2018, the number of judges was bumped up to 15. That's a huge jump, and it really tells you how the needs of the province have grown over time.
All right, this is where the story gets really, really interesting. This brings us to probably the biggest test the court has ever faced. On multiple occasions, the judges were confronted with something called a Provisional Constitutional Order, or PCO for short. And let me tell you, this was an absolute test of their principles. So you're probably asking, what on earth is a PCO? Well, a Provisional Constitutional Order is an order, usually issued during a period of military rule, that basically hits the pause button on the entire Constitution. It suspends it. And for a judge, this creates an impossible choice. You either have to take a new oath under this PCO to keep your job, or you refuse, and you're out. You're removed from the court. It's a massive challenge to the whole idea of an independent judiciary, right? Because their oath is to the Constitution, not some temporary order. The first time this really came to a head was in March 1981. This was the moment of truth. And you have to understand that this wasn't just some abstract political event happening far away. For every single judge on that bench, this was a deeply personal choice with massive consequences for their careers and for the future of the court itself. So what happened? Well, the court split. You can see it right here. On one side, you had the Chief Justice, Khuda Baksh Murray, and Justice M.A. Rashid. They refused. They would not take the new oath. But on the other side, 3 of their colleagues did take the oath. And as a result, Justice Zakiullah Lodi was made the new Chief Justice. I mean, this one moment just perfectly captures the incredible pressure these judges were under.
And believe it or not, this wasn't just a one-off thing. This whole challenge came up again, first in 2000, and then again in 2007. Now, in these later cases, the results were different. The sitting judges, including the Chief Justices at the time, all decided to take the new oath. It just goes to show you how complex and persistent this constitutional crisis really was for the judiciary. Okay, so that's a look back at some of the historical trials the courts has been through. But what about today? What does the High Court of Balochistan look like right now? Let's check out its current structure. Here's a quick look at the court's stats today. The current Chief Justice is Razi Khan Barak. And remember how it started with just 5 judges? Well, now it's authorized for 15 positions, which is a big deal. The retirement age for judges is 62, which is pretty standard for high courts throughout Pakistan. Now, here's a practical question. Balochistan is a huge province, right? Geographically, it's massive. So how does one court, sitting in the capital, Quetta, make sure that people living hundreds of kilometers away can actually get justice? Well, the answer's pretty clever.
It's a system of circuit benches. You can think of them as temporary court sessions that travel to different towns. So while the main court, the principal seat, is in Quetta, it also has these circuit benches in other important towns, like Sibi, Turbat, Lorelei, and Kuzdar. The judges literally travel to these places, bringing the authority of the High Court with them. It's a way of bringing justice to the people instead of forcing everyone to travel to the capital. It just makes the whole system so much more accessible.
And all of this really brings us to a final, pretty big question, one that goes way beyond just this one court. When you look at the history of the Balochistan High Court, it forces you to ask, for any high court, anywhere in the world, what's the real challenge? Is it just interpreting the law in the books? Or is it defending the very idea of justice when the whole system is under enormous pressure? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.